I must hit this letter before she comes. Yes, Mama, if she leaves, she will become successful and people will forget me.
The entire compound became silent. The rain outside suddenly grew heavier. Sandra stood at the top of the staircase, her hands shaking as she held the missing admission letter. Aunt Beatrice's face turned pale. "Sandra!" she shouted. But the girl slowly descended the stairs. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I cannot continue lying." Adaobi stared at the envelope. The university seal was still visible. Her hands trembled. Her voice barely came out. My admission letter?" Sandra nodded. "Mother hid it." The villagers who had gathered outside slowly entered the compound. The retired postmaster stood frozen. Even the old chief could not speak. Aunt Beatrice suddenly rose. "She is lying!" But Sandra shook her head. "I saw the letter the day it arrived." She looked toward Adaobi. "You received a full scholarship." Adaobi felt her legs weaken. Everything she had prayed for, everything her late parents had dreamed about, everything she believed she had lost. It had been hidden inside the same house where she cooked, cleaned, and suffered every day. She slowly opened the envelope. The words stared back at her. Congratulations. She had been admitted nearly 2 months earlier. Classes had already begun. The scholarship acceptance deadline had almost passed. A cry escaped her lips. Not from joy, from pain. All those nights she had cried. All those moments she believed God had abandoned her. All those times she called herself a failure. The truth had been sleeping inside her aunt's wardrobe. The villagers turned toward Aunt Beatrice. For years they had praised her generosity. Now her wickedness stood exposed. The village chief spoke. "Why?" Aunt Beatrice remained silent, but Sandra answered. "She feared Adaobi would become greater than me." The old women began shaking their heads. The men lowered their eyes. Because jealousy had nearly destroyed an innocent girl's future. That night, Aunt Beatrice locked herself inside her room. The entire village discussed the scandal. Meanwhile, Adaobi sat alone beneath the mango tree, where her father once taught her to read. She held the letter tightly, but her future was still uncertain. The deadline was only 3 days away. The university was hundreds of kilometers away. She had no transportation money, no clothing, no suitcase, no hope. The next morning, something remarkable happened. The retired headmaster arrived first. He placed money inside her hand. "You earned this." Then the village tailor came. "I will sew your clothes." The market women gathered. "We will buy your provisions." The motorcycle riders contributed money. The farmers donated food. Even the village chief offered transportation. One by one, the same people who once doubted her began helping her. By evening, enough money had been raised. Adaobi would go to the university. When Aunt Beatrice heard this, she finally came outside. For the first time in many years, she looked small, weak, broken. She walked toward Adaobi. The entire village watched. "My daughter." Adaobi raised her eyes. The woman fell to her knees. "I was jealous." Tears flowed freely. "I feared your success. I feared people would compare you with Sandra. I allowed envy to blind me." Nobody had ever seen Aunt Beatrice cry. But some wounds are too deep for tears to heal. Adaobi looked at the woman who had caused her suffering, the woman who stole her future, the woman who made her believe she was worthless. Silence covered the compound. Finally, Adaobi spoke. "I forgive you." Everyone gasped. "But I will never forget." Aunt Beatrice began sobbing. Because forgiveness can sometimes hurt more than punishment. 3 days later, the entire village gathered to send Adaobi away. As the bus prepared to leave, Sandra hugged her tightly. "I'm sorry." Adaobi smiled. "You told the truth." Years passed. 5 years. Then 7. One afternoon, expensive cars entered Umurike village. People ran toward the road. Children followed. The village chief came outside. A beautiful young woman stepped from the first vehicle, wearing professional clothes, holding official documents. The villagers stared. It was Adaobi. She had become an education officer. She had earned scholarships abroad. She had returned to build a free learning center in the village. The same girl once treated as a servant had returned to change hundreds of lives. Aunt Beatrice, now old and frail, watched from her veranda. Tears filled her eyes. The daughter she tried to destroy had become the pride of the village. Adaobi walked toward her. She bent down respectfully and handed her the first invitation. "Mother, I want you to attend the opening ceremony." The old woman cried openly, because at that moment, she understood something important. Success does not become smaller when another person rises. Jealousy steals peace long before it steals opportunities. And no matter how deeply truth is buried, one day it will return to the light. Like, subscribe, and share for more interesting stories.